Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, hello. Okay, I think I look like I'm live. Good evening, everyone. Happy Democracy Day. How was Democracy Day at your end? I mean, today was Democracy Day, and really, we're all supposed to be, I don't know, jumping for joy, waving our flags and flexing, but we were all cooped up in our houses. I was cooped up in my house. Most people were, for the fear of things that mostly didn't happen, thank God, at least from this side of Lagos where I live. So, my name is Ayo Ayeni, and today is World Day Against Child Labor. And I am a business and family life strategist. I advocate for the wellness of women and children and family friendly work policies as well. And one of the issues that are very dear to my heart, being someone who is actively involved in the wellness and well-being of children, is child labor. It's a lot of things, rolled into one ball. And graciously, Mr. Taiwo Akinlami has agreed on the shortest notice ever to come and give us his, one or two tips and ideas or overall impression about child labor, especially from the perspective of us being Nigerians. So, Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, thank you so much for agreeing to be here. Now, I hope I'm doing the right thing. Am I? Am I not? Am I? Okay. I'm doing Good evening, sir. Oh my God. Let me reduce my Ekurole, sir. It's really great to hear your voice, to see your fresh face.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you too.
I am extremely happy that you agreed to do this. This notice was so short, as even I cannot believe it myself. I'm so glad that you agreed to come and
It
talk
is
to us
well.
today. I thought about it, and I couldn't come up with anybody who was more qualified to talk about this from the Nigerian perspective. There's a lot of talk online about child labor, but if we really read it, it's a bit far from home for us. Most of the things they are saying, our issues are deeper than all those ones they are talking about,
Yes.
So I thought that Mr. Taiwo Akinlami is just the only person I can think of. So thank you for agreeing to do this, sir. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you today. He said I agreed to do this as shortest notice. What are friends for if it's not to chance each other?
For those people who don't know Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, he's by every standard the biggest advocate for child protection in the whole of Africa. As far as I'm concerned, he has worked with all the big names, with UNICEF, with all the big people globally who are making any kind of visible difference in child protection and family life and all kinds of things. And he's been a great resource to me personally as a mom. I don't know where I will be in this life as a mom without Mr. Taiwo Akinlami. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you so
So,
much, ma'am, for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you.
okay, I found my pen. I was trying to look for a pen to take notes. So, Mr. Taiwo Akinlami, World Day Against Child Labor. What is your Nigerian perspective, sir?
Well, what the day of against child labor globally concerning children. I think when we look at Nigeria, the first thing we need to think about is the fact that how do we see children as a people? How we see children is going to determine how we treat them, whether when it comes to work, when it comes to abuse, when it comes to education, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to caregiving. The foundational issue is how we see children. So I think when it comes to Nigeria perspective, Mandela made a fundamental statement. He said there's no keener revelation of the soul of a nation than how they treat their children. When you look at the way we treat our children in Nigeria, you find that by mouth, the Child Rights Act opposes child labor. And it is important to note that child labor refers to any form of labor that hinders physical, emotional development of the child. Any form of labor that stops the child from seeking education, that hinders his or her development, physical development, mental development, or that put the child at any form of risk. Now, the Child Rights Act, what the Child Rights Act did is to leave the entire provisions of the Labor Act, which opposes children from working, and validated that with the Child Rights Act. But the truth of the matter is that it's one thing for our law to say something, it's another thing for the law to be implemented. So the challenge a lot of times is never with the provisions of the law. The challenge is with the implementation, the enforcement of this law. And I think that's where we have a major problem as to our laws being enforced. Today, children are involved in all kinds of labor. They are involved in hawking. They are involved in shoemaking. They are involved in vulcanizing. They are involved in domestic help. They are involved in working in quarry. They are involved in so many, work that hinders their physical development, their emotional development, their mental development, and even that hinder their education. So that is where we are in Nigeria as of today.
All right, sir. So when you say all these things, because when I heard about child labor, the first thing that is in our faces as Nigerians is that in the morning, even when I drop my children off at school, in the morning you see kids that have to do one or two things before they can even go to school. Kids that hawk. So when I read that definition on the UN.org page about things that hinders a child from having an education or from enjoying their childhood. So and we also, you've talked again about parents not being, it's not a sustainable practice for you to put the entire burden of raising children on the family unit alone. So what do we have to say about the realities of people every day who cannot survive without, well, should I say they can't survive, or maybe they can, or they're just not trying hard enough, without involving children? So without, you see some families now, the mom would hawk, the children will hawk, they will go to different directions to try and gather as much sales for what they will feed on for that day. So in terms of those realities that faces us every single day, what do you have to say about that and child labor?
Well, in 2010 or thereabouts, International Labour Organization, having looked at the issue of child labor, the lead organization in the world on labor is International Labour Organization, is a United Nations organ. International Labour Organization began to find a solution to child labor because International Labour Organization is not interested in children working, and they believe that has to be obliterated. That problem has to be solved. But in solving the problem, they were not playing the ostrich. They were asking the question, what exactly are the things that lead to child labor? It was found that poverty is the number one thing that leads to child labor. Now, you and I cannot send our children on the street to go and work. If they do any work, it's home chores to train them to be responsible as young children for the purpose of their own future. Not even for the purpose of helping us most of the time. We want them to fix food, we want them to do one or two things for the purpose of teaching them responsibility so that they can know that right without responsibility is liability. But the children of the poor, the children of wells of wood and draughts of water, the children of the oi polloi, they are the ones that are most involved in child labor. This kind of labor that hinders their education, that hinders their development, that hinders their growth, that hinders their childhood, that takes away childhood for them. It is the children of wells of wood and draughts of water, the children of the oi polloi, the wretched of the earth, so that the ones that are involved. Now, in Magodo where I live, I've never seen the child of any neighbor hawking, but I've seen the children of the poor being brought there as house help, being brought there to come and support the family. So International Labour Organization says the solution to child labor, if poverty is the cause, is the main cause, the solution is what they call social protection. social protection, provision of basic amenities for parents. And until we embrace that social protection in Nigeria, until we embrace social protection in Africa, it is going to be difficult for us to obliterate child labor. Child labor is going to continue no matter what we do, no matter what we say, no matter how much we shout, until we are ready to make social investment, which will lead to social protection. And we are talking about provision of basic things: healthcare, education, shelter, food, nutrition. All of these things are the things that are the basic thing that social protection cover, because it is for those in the society that do not have the capacity to take care of themselves, to take care of their children. Then you say, okay, if people know that they don't have what it takes to take care of children, why do they continue to have children? Maybe they should have done family planning. But it is also important to note that family planning is a private conversation to the upper crust, those who understand what it means to bring children to this world and to raise them. But family planning, if it is going to apply to the entire country, has to come by way of the government. In China, the Chinese government did not leave family planning to the citizens because they knew they leave it to the citizens, they're going to suffer a population explosion. What did they do? They regulated the birth of children for some time because they know that if you must give birth to children, you must plan for them. And in planning for them, it is not only the parents that plan for them, government also must plan. So until we embrace what ILO calls social protection, we are not going to be able to arbitrate this whole idea of child labor. And that is what we need to call attention to. Today in Nigeria, 92 million Nigerians are living in abject poverty. According to Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria, another 54 million are said to be vulnerable. So when you have this teeming population that do not know where their next meal is coming from, that do not know where their next rent is coming from, that's if they have accommodation. I'll tell you a pathetic story. One day my brother called me, because my brother we live close, and he called me and said, there's a girl here who has been miling around, and somebody found the girl and brought her. This girl has been sent to Hawk. She went to Hawk. When she went to Hawk, she misplaced 1,000 naira while she was hawking groundnut. So she went back home, and her guardian told her that, see, if tomorrow, by the time you come back from school, I don't have this 1,000 naira, you will see what will happen to you. So the girl left school and just ran away. And it was my brother that found her in front of his house. And so when my twin brother called me, what did I do? I went there with another colleague, and we put this child in the car. She told us where she was living, and we decided to take her home. By the time, that's in Keto area there, we decided to take her home. By the time we got to the place where she thought she was living, there's nowhere a car can enter that place. So we came down, we started walking. It was in the night at about 8 p.m. And we were wondering, is this child a bait to lead us to ritual killers? We were just trying to put a call through to somebody to say, this is where we are. We're calling my wife and calling other people. This is where we are. We are following a child home. My sister. Finally, we got to where they are living. It is a refuse dump. They have managed to put a room together in that refuse dump. We got there, they were eating. There's no light. Not even, they cannot afford candle. Not to talk about lantern. They were not putting on anything. They were in the dark. It was our phone that we were using we were asking them, how are you seeing here? He said, we are okay here. And note that shed that I'm talking about is rented. It's a rented shed. I wanted to call it rented apartment. It's not an apartment, it's a shed. And with that day, they were eating eba. And when I look at the soup they were using to eat the eba, it looked like water, sprinkled with pepper. By the time we put lights, no meat. This girl now has misplaced 1,000 naira. In the economy of the parents, that 1,000 naira is 1 million.
Oh.
And we have to appeal to the woman to say, Madam, what do? We have to refund the 1,000 naira so that the girl can have some peace. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. We have to embrace the social protection. We have to be interested in how to empower parents, because I don't think there's any parent who just send the child to go and hawk.
That is true, sir. If they had a choice.
Yeah.
Wow. So, sir, from everything you've said now, it's very obvious. Social protection is missing. And the problems of this world generally, let me not make it sound like a Nigerian problem. The problems of this world are too many. So it's not like it's going to change anytime soon, as you said. What can we do in the immediate? How can these problems
Well,
be
what we
alleviated?
can
Let me.
do, yes, the United Nations has led the way by, putting a day aside against child labor. For United Nations to decide to have a day against child labor means child labor is a global problem. It's a global problem, which also dovetails into child trafficking and all of that. It's a global problem. And unfortunately, United Nations can declare a day, but United Nations is not going to go to individual countries to solve their problem for them. United Nations can give us standards and say this is what we need to do. United Nations is not going to go to individual country to enforce the standard. The truth of the matter is that this day has been declared. United Nations says since 2010 that social protection is the key to obliterating child labor. But does that mean that United Nations is going to go from country to country to enforce it and force them? United Nations is not going to do that. United Nations does not even have the resources to go around every country to go and be policing them. It is expected that government will be responsible to do the needful. So what I suggest is that we need to lead an advocacy that talks about the whole issue of social protection, social investment. How do we ensure that our children are not left in the cold? Look at the north, the Almajiri crisis, where children are being used as beggars in the name of going to Quranic school. They are supposed to go to school to learn, but these children are being used as beggars in their own country. That is a form of child labor. So we have to lead an advocacy that will call attention the way we are calling attention now. I must commend you for putting this program together. No matter how many people that we have been able to reach, we have again raised that awareness to say this is the state of affairs and we need to be interested as citizens, as Nigerian citizens. One, lead a conversation. Number two, make representation to your local government, to your rep and all of that about this issue. Number three, if there are people we can support in our area, maybe there are joining neighborhood that we know that this kind of crisis is going on. What do? We find a way to support. Now those are some of the things I believe we can do. Ultimately, the solution to child labor is a political situation, is a political solution where we are able to boast of a country where the welfare and the security of the people will become the primary aim of government. When we are able to boast of a country where we do not feed people's greed, but we feed people's need. When we are able to create an egalitarian society where the children of boys of wood and drawers of water, the children of the oil polloi and the wretched of the earth will be able to come together and go to the same school, enjoy the same life, and be promised the same future. That is the ultimate solution. But in the interim, we have to advocate for social protection within our state, within our areas of influence. We have to talk to people that we know. We have to see what we can do to help others within our area of influence, and we have to keep pushing this message so that at the end of the day we are able to do the bit we can do. And it was the story of a man who went to the sea and saw a lot of fishes outside. They were outside, and because the river has overflown its bank and those fish were thrown out. And the man was going there and throwing in the fish one after the other. And a man came to meet him and said, I hope it is not what you are doing, what I think you are doing that you are doing. Because if it is what you are doing if it is what I think you are doing that you are doing, it means you are a fool. He said, what do you think I'm doing? I think you are trying to rescue these fish, trying to throw them back into the river. Is that not what you are trying to do? He said, yes. He said, look at how many fish now, thousands of fishes. How many can you possibly throw back into the river? And the man said, well, I may not be able to throw all of them back into the river, but for every one of the fish that I touch, and I'm able to throw back to the river, I've made a difference in the life of that fish. The alternative is to sit down to say, because I cannot do all, I will not do anything. So we must make sure that our disposition must not be until we fix Nigeria. Yes, we are fixing Nigeria. We're going to fix Nigeria. It's an ultimate battle we need to fight. While we are on our way to fixing Nigeria, what are the basic things we can begin to do as citizens, as people that are aware, as people that can take personal social responsibilities? What are the things we need to begin to do to help our children? If you see children that are, look at that child that we took home that night. My twin brother was the one who called me and said we needed to take this child home. Now we could look another way. We may not do anything about it. We may take the child to a police station and all of that. But what did we do? We contributed our own little quota to make sure we went there to sort out the situation and believe that things will normalize. And so that is what I can say in the immediate.
Thank you very much, sir. So it's all about one step at a time, one child at a time, one little effort that you are able to do part time. You know, at the end of the day, makes it, if all of us intervene for one child, as you said, I mean, that's a whole lot of children at the end of the day. Thank you for that wisdom. So I want to go to another level of this, because when I studied this child labor thing, it is so it's not as simple as it sounds. It's actually very robust. It's a very robust. So on the one hand, we are looking at kids of the poor of the poorest. Those are the most vulnerable. Now, we also have kids of people who are not that poor. So when I was reading this stuff, it says, you know, child labor includes, you know, trafficking children. So all these kids that they will promise their parents, so maybe their parents are not even horribly poor, but they just want a better future. They just say, okay, instead of being in the village here, perhaps you can go and stay with Lagbaja in the city where there are more opportunities. But they are minors. So all of these issues, and apart from, there's even international trafficking. Those people that they will say, oh, we are taking you to one country, they need domestic staff, and only for them to get there, and the story is different. So I looked at it, and it's a lot more robust than just putting kids on the street and hawking. There is also those that people use to settle debts. So there's debt only that, oh, I owe this person something. Okay, so it may not even be money, it may not be anything material. It could be, oh, this person has been very nice to us and she just had a child and she's living in Abuja or Lagos. So go and assist the family. And we know that these kids, there's so much going on even with these kids. And they are not even like the poorest, because in the village, they are not doing badly. They are eating, they have fresh food to eat. Their lives may not be glamorous. They may not be going to 5-star schools, quote unquote. But I mean, they are surviving, they are living, and they are happy. They are playing all around the village and they are doing okay. So I want you to speak to this level of child labor that is becoming, in my own eyes, some sort of pandemic, because those are the kind of child labor that is not even obvious. The ones we don't really see. Yes. It's easy now for you to intervene in the matter of a child that was hawking. It becomes a bit more difficult to intervene in the cases of trafficking, children that are being used for pornography. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on online now, where you see pornographic sites that are targeted at children. The actors in those sites are children. And I don't know the arrangement. Perhaps they are being paid. Perhaps they've been brainwashed. I don't know. So that's another level of child labor for me that just crossed my mind. And I thought, ooh.
Okay. You see, when we're trying to solve a social problem, we have to segment it. There has to be a proper segmentation of the problem. So that, and the way to segment it is to begin to look at the root causes of each of these things. Now, you know that when we are in a society where there's no equality, what happens is that some people see themselves as second-rated citizens, while some see themselves as upper-rated citizens, first-class-rated citizens. It is because there's no equality, there's no level playing field for every member of the society to find help within their community. That's what leads to urban migration. That's why people want to send their children to Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Ibadan, all of those places where they think life is better. You hardly find that in a developed clime. People live in America, for example, and they don't carry international passport. They don't carry passport because they don't leave their community. Everything they want is in their community. They want a school is in their community. They want an education center is in their community. They want to do business is in their community. They choose the life they want to live on the basis of the meaning they can find within their immediate community. But because our society in Nigeria is not egalitarian, egalitarian means that the most good of the country are available to the most people. The most good of the country are available to most people. When that good is not available to most people, when the good of the country is available to few people, what happens is that people begin to fend for themselves. So they say, okay, go to Lagos, go to Ibadan, go to Port Harcourt. Maybe there's going to be something better there. Though we are eating well here, but we have not seen how many people have risen from here to become great. We have not seen how many people have risen from here to become a community leader. We have not seen how many people have risen from here to become somebody that we have to reckon with. So it is this your uncle in Lagos. It is this your sister in Ibadan. It is this your uncle in Port Harcourt that is doing well. So please, that same luck that is with him in Port Harcourt or with her in Lagos, we want it to rub off for you. So please, can you help us take this child? And this is the problem. The people who bring children here, they are the one we need to hold responsible. It's not the parent who trusted on the basis of their own level of assumption and their own level of knowledge. They give their children to their neighbors, to their family members, and they bring them to Lagos. Then they bring them to Lagos. They do not treat them the way they treat their own children. They register their own children in highbrow school. They register these children in public schools. Now, I was doing some work with a group of public schools in Lagos State. And we're training heads of school and in Ojoju. And one of the head of schools told me, he said, please, what do we do about these people who claim to register children in our school, and by 2 o'clock, they say the children must close. Meanwhile, by this 2 o'clock, we have extramural lesson for them. They are supposed to be preparing for exam. We have after school program for them. But these children who are outside, who are brought to our school, they are not allowed to attend. So one of them told me, one of them, I asked the parent, that's the guardian who brings the child there. I said, why can't you allow this child to finish by 4 o'clock? These are secondary school children. He said, if I allow her to finish for 2 o'clock, for 4 o'clock, who's going to take over look after my children? So what happens is that by 2 o'clock, he or she has to leave school so that he or she can go and get ready to take care of the children of the person who brought him or her to Lagos. So the question is this: if you say that you want to bring children to Lagos to give them a new life, to give them a new lease of life, why don't you give them the same treatment you give to your children? Why will you register them in public school and put your children in private school? If you don't mind public school, why not put your children in public school? The plate they are going to use to eat is different. Where they are going to eat in the house is different. Do you know a pathetic story that a lady told me that she was a house help? She came to stay with her brother, with her mother's brother in Lagos. She got promoted. She did exam. She got promoted. You know, the family said she cannot be promoted above their child, so she must repeat the class. That is the kind of wickedness we are talking about. So the blame at the end of the day is not with those parents who do not know better. We can blame them all we want, but they don't know better. They are still going to do it tomorrow. The problem is with those who claim to bring children to Lagos to say they want to help them, but they are helping them in their own terms. They are helping them in one hand, and in the other hand, neglecting them, messing them up. Those are the main issues, and we need to speak to ourselves. Put culpability where culpability belongs. If we bring a child to Lagos, are we going to treat the child the way we treat our children? If you are not going to be able to treat the child the way we treat our children, then there's no point bringing the child here, because you are going to sell to that child that he or she is a second-rated citizen. When she does not eat where you eat, when she does not go to the school you go to, when she does not eat what you eat, when she does not go to the places you go to, when you want to go for movies, you leave him or her at home, you go for your movies, then you come back. You leave him or her to be fixing food. Then this child is going to have inferiority complex from childhood. And that is the foundational thing. If you know you cannot give a child the same treatment you are going to give to your children, don't bring them near you. Leave them in the village. If the parents beg you from now to tomorrow, you know that in the village there is equality. Their parents, they eat with their parents. They go out with their parents. There's no difference between them and their sibling. If you know that when you bring them to Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, or Ibadan, anywhere, you are not going to be able to do that to the children. Leave them. Most of the time, it is lowly raw. That's why we say we want to come and help children in Lagos. It's lowly raw. You need people for labor, cheap labor. You need people. You say, my agreement with the parents is that I will send him or her to school, then he will look after my children. Why is so? Most of the time, your eldest child is older than these children you are going to bring. Why is your eldest child not leaving school on time to come and look after the sibling? You are not going to allow that, but you are going to remove this child from school when it is most critical and say go and look after children. Let's people agree. You are an employer of labor, a very, very deceptive one for that matter. And we need to begin to address all of those issues so that so that this solution can be at a level where we can touch it. Where we can touch it. Where we can have, for example, Mr. Ayo Ayeni, if you are going to have conversation with women in your church, this is a topic that they can easily understand. If you are going to have discussion with people within your network, if you gather 10 people together now, I think 7 or 6 will be guilty of what I'm talking about because I see it around. When you see the way the children are dressed, you know the children of the father and the mother, you know the head. I see them in church. When they come to church, I see the children and I see the other children. And we expect that these children are going to grow up to compete competitively in the world. They are going to grow up to make a difference in the world. How do I make a difference? When I've been told that I'm a second-rated citizen. When I've been told that the fork and knife being used by these children is not good enough for me. When I've been told that the schools that these children go to, I cannot go there. When I've been told that the places where these children sit, I cannot sit there. It's a major issue.
It is, sir, it is. And as you were talking, it occurred to me that there was a time when I think it was you that was discussing it with us about some resources where we can do whistleblowing. And I used to hear it a lot. I don't know if it died down. I don't know, have they gotten tired? Resources where if you see people who are being, if you see it, report it kind of thing. Then within Lagos State, I think it was a Lagos State thing. I think it was DSVRT, I'm not sure. Whereby you can
DSVRT deals with, yes.
So I don't know, are there still those resources? Because those are some of the things you can do. But then again,
those resources,
I'm even a bit worried. If I see a child who is being maltreated, like I used to live in a neighborhood, and this day, that day was a very hot day for me. The man stripped a young, growing adolescent boy. He stripped him naked, pushed him out of the house, locked him in the dog cage where they keep dogs, and they have very fierce dogs. The dogs are so fierce. It's just that because he's the one taking care of the dogs know him, so they won't really attack him. I was livid. The whole neighborhood, I was ready to go to that house that day and say, today is the day, it's enough. I think neighbors now intervened. We spoke with the man. I think eventually returned the boy, but that was the last day because I told the man, sir, you cannot. He's a young boy, as in Gende Okuri, and locked him with dogs in a cage. It was, and for the first time that day, the guy reacted. This is a man that everybody fears, even the adults. For the first time that day, the guy reacted and spoke back that it's enough, you know. And so there's all kinds of wickedness in high places going on, but I know that we can report these things. So on one hand, can you give us some of these resources where we can blow the whistle? That's my first question. Another question I have is, when we blow this whistle, what then is the fate of these children? Because the government is not going to take them in. Are they going to be sent back? So are we really making a difference by blowing the whistle on these abusers? Because that's what they are.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to say. Speaking up is one thing. Getting support for the children is another thing. And you made a foundational statement which is critical, which is the fact that when is government going to take these children in? I'm not aware of any scheme of government that wants to take these children in. I'm not aware. But what I think we can do before whistle blowing is to become our brother's keeper. Number one is to ensure that when we bring children here, if we cannot give children the kind of treatment they're going to give to our children, let's leave them in the village. Number two, when we bring them here, let us do our best to give them the best. Because in the future, these children that you think are nobodies, that we are treating the way we are treating them, may be the solution to our problem tomorrow, may even be the ones that will take responsibility for us, even when our own biological children are not able to do so. In this life, God has a sense of humor, and things happen even beyond what we think can happen a lot of times. God is diverse in his way, in the way he operates. That's number one. Number two, it is not every time that you raise an alarm that the child needs to be taken out. The child may be returned to the parents. For example, I've handled cases where the settlement was that, okay, this child has been with you for 3 years. You'll be sending it to school. Okay, you know what we want you to do now? Because that matter was with NAPTIP. What we want you to do now is that, can you send the child to school to finish secondary school? All this money you will give to the mother, you give to the father. So what NAPTIP did in that case was to take the child back home with their officer. From Lagos, they took the child back home. Put the child in a bus with the officer of NAPTIP and took that child back to their village. So there are organizations we can talk to in Lagos. If you see that a child is being used for child labor, you can talk to NAPTIP. If you go online, if you Google NAPTIP in Lagos, they have a very responsive state commandant who is committed to the cause of children. So we need to be able to explore that. I have friends there also who I know there's a woman that I know there who is a mother indeed. She's interested in matters that has to do with children. For many years, we served together on the platform of Child Protection Network, Lagos State, spending our own money, spending our own resources, coming for meeting, responding to cases of trafficking of child labor. Mrs. Elizabeth, she's in NAPTIP Lagos. So what I'm saying is that we must speak up for children. Report if it is child labor that now has components of domestic violence, you will report to DFVRT, Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team. If you go online, they are very popular in Lagos. You will find their phone number. Number two, if it is trafficking, they brought a child from home to bring the child here to come and to go and put the child at labor. You can also speak up, talk to NAPTIP. NAPTIP will spring into action. NAPTIP will pick up the person concerned. The worst case is to return the child to where the child is coming from. If the child is not getting the best of life here, which is the reason why the child is sent here in the first instance. If you cannot help the child, then return the child to the family. So most of these children have families. As a matter of fact, some of these families are loving families at home who just wanted the best for their children, and they think that the way they can get that best for their children is to. My laptop is reflecting on my face, and they think that the best way they can get that support for their children is to send the child to go and live with a family member. And at the end of the day, the thing boomerangs. A lot of times, these children are not even aware. They are not aware. They can't even tell their parents what they are going through. So if you are a good Samaritan, you report the matter, NAPTIP will wade in, and ultimately the children will be returned to their parents, and they can have a bit of relief.
Thank you so much, sir, on this very robust topic. I know that everybody would have picked a thing or two. So you have told us now that first of all, the solution to child labor is social protection, which is a political thing. It's not something that one person or two people can do. However, in our own little way, we all can be good Samaritans. We can be our neighbors' keepers. So the little that we can do, one child, two children that you can, what's the word, speak up for, please do. I also heard you, sir. You said, there are also resources that we can report to. NAPTIP, very active, DSBRT as well, but these are domiciled in Lagos. So what about outside Lagos? What then is, if I want to be a good Samaritan outside of Lagos,
Well,
there really isn't.
well, I think that there are numbers you should have in anywhere you are in 36 states of federation. There are children, there are ministries in different states that are called different names. In Lagos, they are called Ministry of Women Affairs and in Lagos they are called MYS SSD, that is Ministry of Youth and Social Development. They are the government ministry in Lagos that are responsible for every matter that has to do with children. In some states, they are called Ministry of Youth and Social Development. In some states, they are called different names. They are called Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development. At the federal level, they are called Ministry of Social Affairs and Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development. Look for, you see, any time there's a will, there's a way. We're not able to sit down here and tell you all the contacts. But if you are a good Samaritan, you want to help a child, you will make the investigation, you will find out. And I know that in each of the states, there is always a ministry dedicated to women and children. So if you can't find an NGO, make representation to government. What if government does not do something? Put pressure on government. What if you put pressure and government does not do something? Note that you have done your bit. Your bit is to speak up. Your bit is to help a child. As a matter of fact, even if government does not do anything, that person has been reported and your identity has been shielded. That person will now know that people are watching me. Is either I want to return this child to the family or I want to keep the child and do right. Even if it is only that the person is invited, the person will have known that it is no more business as usual. He or she needs to do things right. So irrespective of where you are in Nigeria, 36 states of the Federation or Abuja, look for the ministries that work with children. Look for child protection network. For example, there is child protection network in almost all the states of the Federation in Nigeria. It is a network created by UNICEF for the purpose of finding protection for children. If you call child protection in any child protection committee or child protection members in any state, they are going to swing into action. They are going to make sure that they do something. So how do I get to know members of child protection in my state? All I need to do is to reach out to the government and ask around. One or two NGOs here and there will be able to tell you what you need to do. But if you keep quiet and you do nothing, you are not going to be able to provide the kind of support and the kind of help you can provide for a child. What I'm asking you to do is that the ultimate solution to the situation of the Nigerian child is a Nigeria that is fixed, is a Nigeria that is restructured, is a Nigeria where the greatest good go to the greatest number of people. But while we are waiting for that Nigeria, we cannot fold our arms. We have to become our brother's keeper true. We can bring people from the village and give them the kind of life they will not be able to get in the village. But we know we bring them to the urban area for the purpose of supporting them, not to turn them into child laborer. We can ensure that in our community, if there are children that are going through a lot, we can begin to see what kind of support, what kind of resources can we raise for these children of the poor in the area where we live. You know, for every Apapa, there is an Ajegule. For every Magodo, there is a Ketu. For every Koyi, there is an Obalende. For every Surulere, there is a Sari Gomu. Now, wherever you live, if you look in those areas and we begin to build critical support for people in that area, while we are trying to solve the national problem, we are also saying, okay, this is my area, I want to reduce child labor by 10%. Because you have the means, you have the connection. What are the issues that make people that cause child labor? Maybe it is the people of issue of food. You know, in developed country, they have things they call pantry. Now, these are individuals, members of society, who just say, come for food 3 times a day. Come and pick food that you can cook. Now, when they remove the problem of food from people, do you know what you have removed? If we come together in our community and say, you know what, we want to sustain a kitchen, or not a kitchen, we want to sustain a pantry. Come and take small rice every week. Come and take small beans. Come and take small pepper. You will see that if this family can feed their children, come and take small oil, take small kerosene to power your stove, take small charcoal here. If you want to take small charcoal here. If you want to cook, if you are using a charcoal pot, you will see that if food, Yoruba says, tó jẹ́ bá ti kúrò nínú ìṣẹ́bùṣe, if people can be fed, you will see how they will reduce sending their children to the street, because we are taking off a big problem. And it is time we begin to build community schools. You see, in the US, I went to a place called KIP. KIP is a community school. My sister, I posted the picture last week of this school. This is a community school free. They go to build those kind of schools in indigent communities where those children don't have hope of going to school. It does not depend on the richness of the parent or the poverty of the parent. It depends on some good-spirited people who feel that they have a lot to give back to society, who know that if they raise their own children well, and the children of the poor is not raised well, the children that they do not raise, they do not raise will become a threat to their own children that they have raised. So because they know the terror of having a society where children are not trained, when children don't have a future, when children don't have a sense of stakeholding, when children don't feel anything towards the state, they know that. And that is why they do the things that they do. It is high time we began to look at those kind of things in Nigeria. Can we build food pantry? Can we build community school? Can we support parents with cooperative? If we have cooperative program where parents can borrow, that's what Mohammed Yunus did in Bangladesh. He was a private citizen who saw the poverty of his people, and he was a university lecturer who said, what can I do to help my people? And he began to create egalitarian community society within the closest community, borrowing women money without interest, with little interest, ensuring that they bring that money back to start small business. Before you know, he started a revolution, and he was given Nobel Peace Prize because he was able to solve the poverty problem in Bangladesh to a very large extent. These are the kind of things good-spirited Nigerians can begin to do to alleviate the situation while we wait to solve the political problem.
Sir, I am extremely encouraged. Like, initially when I was reading about this in the morning, I was so depressed. Let me use that loose term now. I was overwhelmed that this problem is too much. What can we even do? But you see, this final note that you said now has given me so much hope, because what you said, they are very doable things. Sir. As you said, I always have the opinion that the poorest communities live among the richest communities. That has always been my observation of the world, and it's a global thing. The poorest of if you go to Lekki, sir, inside some of those estates in Lekki, hey, the things you will see there, sir, they are unbelievable. In Dolphin here, some people live under the high rise. The day I saw it, I was very shocked. Like, that's where they live. I don't know, there's a way they built Dolphin high rise that the building itself is raised. The building is not sitting on the floor. So there is space between the building and the floor, and people live under those buildings on like 3-4 story buildings. It's really crazy. What you said now, sir, is extremely doable. So for those of us who really want to make a difference, there is something that we can always do. One child, encourage people, 2 or 3 or 5 people, a community of people come together, even if it is in school, even if it is a program, whatever it is. These things are so doable, and I hope that each and every one of us can commit, whether you are here or you are watching the replays, can commit to doing something, collaborate with 1 or 2 people who have means within your neighborhood, and on a national level, we'll begin to see a lot more improvement, even while we wait for the politicians to sort themselves out and come to our level, to our rescue, as it were. Thank you so very much, sir. I don't know if you have any final words, because this thing you said, sir, you just, is as if I did this live for myself. That's how I'm feeling right now. Like, I know that there are things that we can then do instead of just feeling so hopeless and be like, well, the problem of the world is too much, Jerry. Any little
Mm.
thing it would make a lot of difference. So find the
Yes.
numbers if you are confused. Wherever you live in Nigeria, Google is your friend. Just go online, Google the local government areas. You can I know, and somehow I know that Nigeria is, we have a lot of issues. But what I found is that sometimes when you really want to get things done, the government and the government offices are not as unresponsive as we think. I think that in our heads sometimes the matter is what's in our head than it is in reality. Sometimes if we just stand up, if we just go there, if we press them, things always happen. Thank you so very much, sir. So I don't know if you have any last words that
Well,
you want
the,
to
the
leave us
last
with.
word I would say is that what I've found is that when children are helped like this, they become the foot soldier of progress in society. They also want to extend that kind of help that they have gotten to other people. That's what I've seen, and that's a global story. That when we go out of our way to raise people from the dunghill and give them feet to stand. What we are doing is that we are raising an army of social workers. We are raising an army of conscious children who knew the path they went through. And because they know the path they went through, they also want to replicate that in the lives of other people. So that is why it is important for us to become our brother's keepers. That is why it is important for us to see the much we can do to ensure that we elevate property in our own environment. Whatever we can do, no matter how small, we may not be able to start a regular food pantry, start something. There is enough for our need, there's no enough for our greed. Therefore, anywhere you see need is because there is greed. And what is greed? Simply speaking, it is lack of sense of stewardship of private property. You need to know that what you hold in your hand is not yours. You don't need to be a government functionary for you to understand that. You don't need to be a pastor for you to understand that. You don't need to be an imam for you to understand. You just know that I have commitment to stewardship of private property. So it is what has been given to me. But I know if I don't share it equally, it's going to cause me social constipation. I'm going to be constipated in the sense that things are going to begin to happen that I'm not happy about. So for me to heal myself of social constipation, I need to drink the Andrew liver salt of distribution. I need to distribute. That is my own Andrew liver salt that I need to take so that I can continue to distribute as much as possible. I know it may be tough in a country like Nigeria, you want to save for tomorrow. It's important. We need to do all of that while we still set something aside for the other, knowing that whatever is in our hand does not belong to us. It is for the purpose of distribution. God did not create enough for our greed. He has created enough for our need. When you take your need, what is left is your greed. Release that. After you have taken your need, release the rest to the member society. Let somebody go to bed tonight saying, thank God for this woman, thank God for this man. Let somebody go to school tonight and tomorrow saying, thank God for this man, thank God for this man. Let somebody receive health care tonight. It may be ordinary Panadol, it may be ordinary sanitary towel. Let somebody receive that kind of help today and say, thank God for this woman and thank God for that man. Put a smile on the face of someone so that together we can build in our own environment an egalitarian society. And as we continue to do that little by little, our country, our community will continue to change, one child at a time, one family at a time, one community at a time, one state at a time, one nation at a time, one continent at a time, and one world at a time. That's how it works.
Thank you so much, sir. This has been amazing. I have nothing else to add to any of what you said. Thank you so much for coming on this live. I'm sure that we are the wiser and the better, and I'm sure that our nation is also the wiser and the better for it. Adupe, sir, thank you so much for your
Thank you
time.
very much, madam. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. Yeah, bye.
Wow. Okay. So, that 1 hour, I have somebody screaming, mommy, mommy, at the door already. That was an intense 1 hour. hour. I want to thank everybody who joined in. It's been amazing. So one step at a time. I think that's the problem. You know, when they say, how do you eat a whole elephant? It's one bite at a time. So one child at a time. Anything you can do by just being good Samaritans, by being good humans, intervene, speak up for a child, get phone numbers of people that can help. NAPTIP, DSVRT, Ministry of Youth and Women Affairs, and all those kind of people are not as unresponsive as we may think. Thank you so much for joining us on this day, on this World Day Against Child Labor. We hope that our children would have a much better life and live in a much better society than the ones that we grew up in. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye.